The morning sun stretched pale fingers across the quiet streets of Harbor Point. Commuters shuffled toward coffee shops. Shopkeepers pulled up metal shutters, and a salty breeze from the bay rolled lazily through town. It felt like any other Tuesday. Ordinary, predictable. Padding along the sidewalk, Rex, the station's prized K9, looked every bit the picture of a contented dog. His dark coat gleamed against the light, and his tongue lolled happily as he matched the pace of Officer Ryan Cole. To most passers-by, Rex was just another well-behaved shepherd enjoying his walk before duty. But Ryan knew better. Behind those amber eyes lay a set of instincts honed by months of rigorous training, a partner whose nose could unearth what eyes missed. They turned the corner toward the precinct. The old brick building stood solid against the sky, the flag above it barely stirring in the early breeze. Ryan paused at the steps, crouching to scratch Rex behind the ears. "Ready for another day, partner?" he asked. Rex wagged his tail once, sharp and deliberate, his version of a nod. Inside, the station smelled faintly of brewed coffee and paper. Phones rang, printers clattered, and detectives traded early jokes. Rex trotted beside Ryan, ears flicking at familiar voices. He claimed his usual spot near Ryan's desk, where a mat and water bowl waited. Then the front door opened, and the morning's calm thinned. A courier stepped inside, carrying a medium-sized parcel wrapped in brown paper. He looked uneasy, eyes darting from desk to desk. "Delivery for the department," he said, placing the package on the counter. "No sender listed, just showed up." Sergeant Walker frowned, signing for it. "Strange hour for a drop-off," she murmured, slicing the paper open with a penknife. Inside was a small, elegant box. When she lifted the lid, a wisp of perfume drifted out. Rich, sweet, faintly metallic. Nestled in tissue lay a silk scarf, ivory streaked with faint crimson stains. A hush rippled through the room. Walker glanced at Ryan. "Get Rex." Ryan motioned, and Rex sprang up, nostrils flaring. He approached the counter, nose twitching at the scent curling from the fabric. Something in his posture changed, a stiffening, an alertness. He gave a sharp bark, then a second louder. Ryan crouched beside him. "You've got something?" Rex's tail hovered, neither wagging nor still. He sniffed again, then turned toward the exit, muscles tense. "Looks like he wants to track," Ryan said. Walker nodded. "Take him out. See where it leads. I'll get the lab to rush the scarf." Ryan clipped on Rex's lead, heart quickening with the familiar rush of the unknown. Outside, the street bustled as usual, oblivious to the quiet urgency forming at the precinct steps. Rex lowered his nose to the pavement and began to move, following an invisible thread. Ryan kept pace as the dog wove through parked cars, past a bakery releasing the scent of fresh bread, across an alley slick from overnight rain. The trail seemed to stretch ahead, taut and fragile, and Rex followed it with unwavering purpose. They crossed into a quieter district, rows of shuttered shops, an abandoned newsstand, walls tagged with old graffiti. Here the air grew heavier. Rex paused at a storm drain, sniffed, then pulled sharply left toward an alley where a rusted dumpster leaned against a brick wall. Ryan's hand drifted to the holster at his side. The alley smelled faintly of ammonia and damp cardboard, but under that was something colder, sharper, the same metallic whisper that clung to the scarf. Rex stopped at a set of tire marks etched in dried mud. He sniffed, circled, then barked once, short and hard. "Vehicle," Ryan murmured, crouching to study the tracks. "Wide tires, recent. Whoever had dropped that parcel hadn't lingered." He straightened, scanning the street beyond. Ordinary cars passed, windows reflecting the morning light, but none slowed. No one watched. Rex gave a low whine, tugging slightly forward. "Easy, boy," Ryan said, rubbing his neck. "We'll log this and come back with backup." They returned to the precinct with Rex still restless at his side. Inside, Walker waited near the evidence table. She gestured to a tech bagging the scarf. "Preliminary swab shows human blood," she said quietly. "We'll know more once the lab runs the DNA," Ryan exhaled. "A case, more, and not a small one." Walker looked at Rex. "That dog of yours just bought himself another headline." Ryan glanced down. Rex's ears were pricked, his gaze fixed on the scarf as if the story woven into its fibers had not yet finished speaking. For Ryan, this was the moment the ordinary day cracked open. Somewhere in the city, someone had left a gift laced with warning, and Rex had already scented the path to its author. Back at the precinct, the lab's preliminary report arrived just after lunch. A pale technician hurried across the bullpen, clutching a folder as if it were hot. She laid it on Walker's desk. "The scarf's blood matches a missing person," she said. "Name's Emily Vance, freelance journalist. She disappeared 3 nights ago after chasing a lead on political corruption." Ryan felt a muscle tighten in his jaw. Emily's photo, clipped to the file, showed a woman with bright eyes and a mischievous smile. She couldn't have been more than 30. Walker turned the folder toward Ryan. "We don't know if she's alive," she said. "But whoever sent that package wanted us looking." Rex, stretched out by Ryan's chair, lifted his head. At the mention of Emily, his ears swiveled as if he understood. Ryan clipped the leash. "Let's see where you take us, buddy." Outside, the air had thickened with afternoon haze. Rex lowered his nose, circling the base of the steps until he found the trail again. His body aligned like an arrow. He moved down Main Street, weaving between pedestrians, tail stiff with purpose. Ryan kept a steady pace, radioing Walker. "We're heading east toward the docks." The scent led them past rows of shuttered fish markets to an abandoned ferry terminal. Seagulls squawked overhead and waves slapped the pilings below. Rex stopped beside a taxi stand, pawing at the gravel. A torn receipt lay half buried there. Ryan crouched, brushing dirt away. Scrawled on the back of the slip were 5 numbers, 24, 7, 13, 9, 2. Ryan frowned. "Looks like some kind of code." He bagged the evidence, then let Rex continue. The dog pulled them along the water's edge, through a corridor of warehouses smelling of diesel and salt. At one building, Rex halted so abruptly that Ryan nearly stumbled. He sniffed a steel door, then sat, gaze fixed. Ryan tested the handle. Locked. A faded sign above read Glenmore Storage. Through a dirty window, Ryan glimpsed stacked crates and a narrow staircase curling up to a catwalk. He called for backup, and within minutes 2 uniformed officers joined him. They pried the door open, weapons drawn. Rex surged forward, nose to the ground, guiding them through dim aisles. On the far side of the warehouse, a table stood under a hanging bulb. Spread across it were photographs. Emily interviewing someone on the steps of City Hall, Emily leaving a cafe, Emily unlocking her car. Each picture was numbered, the ink fresh. Ryan's pulse quickened. She was watched. A faint sound, a metallic scraping, and drifted from above. Rex's head snapped up toward the catwalk. He gave a sharp bark, muscles quivering. Ryan signaled the others, then climbed the stairs, keeping low. Halfway up, he spotted a figure darting toward a skylight. Sunlight flashed on something in the person's hand and a small aerosol can. "Police, drop it," Ryan shouted. The figure leaped, spraying a mist that hung sweet and heavy in the air. Rex below whined, pawing at his nose. Ryan lunged forward, but the suspect wriggled through the skylight and vanished onto the roof. Ryan cursed, sprinting back down to help Rex clear his nose. The mist had been laced with perfume, a deliberate attack on the dog's strongest weapon. But after a few sneezes and a gulp of water, Rex's resolve returned. He sniffed the stairs, then bounded upward. Ryan followed him through the skylight onto the roof. The suspect sprinted across weathered panels toward a fire escape. Rex launched after them, claws scrabbling on tin. The chase wound over narrow ridges and down a shaky ladder into a maze of alleys. At last they cornered the figure behind a shuttered pawn shop. A mask hid the face, but eyes wide with panic peeked above the cloth. Ryan raised his gun. "Hands where I can see them." Instead of surrendering, the suspect tossed a small object to the ground on a glass vial and bolted. The vial shattered, releasing another cloud of sweet metallic scent. Rex barked wildly, lunging after the runner through a gap in the fence. Ryan followed, boots pounding. The pursuit ended abruptly when the suspect leapt into a waiting van. Tires screeched. The vehicle fishtailed and vanished into traffic before Ryan could aim. Breathing hard, Ryan knelt beside Rex, who was pawing at shards of glass. Inside the largest piece lay a slip of paper, somehow unscathed. He read aloud. The story's scent will guide you, but every breath costs time. Walker's voice crackled over the radio. Report? Ryan described the encounter, his eyes drifting back to the note. Whoever they were up against enjoyed the game. Back at the station, analysts worked on decoding the taxi numbers. One suggested they might be coordinates. Another noticed they matched letters on a standard keypad, XGMIB. None of it made immediate sense. Ryan stood by Rex's kennel, stroking his partner's fur. They're taunting us, he murmured. Rex pressed closer, eyes bright despite the long day. A map spread across the table caught Ryan's attention. The numbers, rearranged into 2471392, could correspond to wharf addresses. One dock, Pier 13, lay only blocks from the warehouse. A security camera there might have caught the van. Ryan tightened Rex's harness. One more stop. The pier stretched silent under a bruised sky. Stacks of shipping containers loomed like monoliths, their paint flaking. Rex sniffed the planks, tracing a zigzag path toward the far end. He stopped at a container painted deep blue. Its padlock hung open. Ryan eased the door wide. Inside was a sparse room. A chair, a single light bulb, and a wall lined with notes pinned by brass tacks. Each paper bore dates, headlines, and sketches of perfume bottles. At the center, a chilling photo. Emily bound to a chair, blindfolded, still alive. Ryan's breath caught. He snapped a picture for evidence, then scanned for more. A cell phone lay on the floor, screen dark. As he bent to retrieve it, a timer blinked to life. 09:57. Bomb! Ryan shouted, grabbing Rex and bolting outside. They dove behind a stack of pallets just as a concussive thud shook the pier. Flames roared from the container, black smoke curling into the sky. Sirens wailed in the distance. Ryan held Rex close, feeling the dog's heart hammering against his ribs. The suspect's message was clear. They were always one step ahead, and Emily's time was running out. Ryan returned to headquarters with soot still clinging to his jacket. Walker met him at the door, eyes grim. We'll review the footage near Pier 13, get some rest. But Ryan couldn't rest. He sat with Rex in the quiet training room, the city lights bleeding through blinds. He scratched behind the dog's ear, thinking of Emily's terrified face. We'll find her, pal, he said softly. Rex pressed his head into Ryan's palm, a wordless promise that they would see this through, no matter how dark the trail became. The next morning broke gray and wet, a fine mist coating the precinct's steps. Ryan sipped coffee that tasted more like ash than warmth. On the wall behind him, a screen replayed footage from a camera near Pier 13. The blue van speeding off, its plates deliberately smeared with mud. Walker stood nearby, arms folded. We traced a purchase tied to that van, she said. A warehouse lease under a shell company, industrial district near the river. Ryan's eyes flicked to Rex, curled under his desk but watching them with sharp focus. Let's move. They reached the address just as clouds tore open, sending sheets of rain down. The warehouse loomed at the edge of a service road, its corrugated walls streaked with rust. Faint chemical odors drifted from vents along the roof. Ryan crouched by the door, fingers brushing an electronic lockbox. Looks fresh, he murmured. Walker motioned to two officers behind them. Set a perimeter. Ryan clipped on Rex's harness. The dog pressed close, ears twitching. Even through the rain, he was alert to something hidden inside. Ryan pried open a side window and slipped through, landing in gloom. Stale air clung heavy with oil, dust, and the sharp tang of solvents. Light slanted through narrow skylights, illuminating rows of drums labeled with hazard warnings. Rex sniffed along a painted stripe on the floor, then led Ryan down an aisle toward a staircase descending underground. The stairs groaned underfoot, opening into a cavernous basement lined with shelves of glass bottles. Liquid shimmered inside them, reds, blues, pale greens. On a central table, an old reel-to-reel recorder waited, its tape already wound. Ryan pressed play. A distorted voice filled the room. You've done well, Officer Cole, but Emily's clock is almost spent. Follow the scent to her truth. If you dare, Rex sneezed and whined, sniffing the air. Ryan bent low. A faint trail cut through the chemical haze. Perfume again, but subtler, woven into solvents to mask its path. They followed it through a maze of pipes and crates, past warning signs half-eaten by rust. The trail ended at a heavy door plastered with biohazard stickers. Ryan's hand hovered over the latch. "Stay sharp," he whispered. Inside was a chamber lined with ventilation ducts. A chair sat in the center, chains dangling from its arms. Emily's scarf hung from the ceiling like a flag of surrender. But Emily herself was gone. Ryan scanned the corners. Nothing but shadows and a single ventilation grate wide enough for a person. Suddenly Rex stiffened, gaze fixed above. Ryan followed his eyes to a metal cylinder bolted to the ceiling, blinking red. "Trap!" Ryan lunged, dragging Rex as the cylinder hissed. White vapor gushed downward. They sprinted back through the maze, vapor clawing after them. Alarms shrieked, echoing off the walls. Ryan shoved open the stairwell door, hauling Rex behind a crate just as an explosive cough thundered from below. Heat washed over them. Shards of glass skittered across the floor. Ryan pressed Rex close, heart pounding. The basement had been rigged to erase clues, and them. Once the fire team declared the site safe, investigators combed through the charred debris. They retrieved a single surviving clue, a warped brass locket found near the chair. Inside was a tiny faded photo. Emily as a child standing with an older man whose face was obscured by a tear in the paper. Ryan pocketed it carefully. "Somebody wants us to think this is personal," Walker frowned. "Or they want you chasing the wrong ghost." Ryan knelt to stroke Rex, whose fur still smelled faintly of smoke. The dog leaned against him, eyes steady. He had nearly paid for the case with his life, yet his focus never wavered. That night, Ryan studied the locket at his kitchen table while Rex dozed nearby. The locket's hinge bore a scratched inscription, "Scent binds memory." He jotted possibilities in his notebook. Memory, perfume, family. If Emily's captor had known her past, they might target her father or someone from childhood. By dawn, lab reports arrived. Trace adhesive on the locket matched labels used by a boutique fragrance lab across town. Ryan and Rex drove there under a rising sun. The shopkeeper, startled by their arrival, admitted they'd recently filled a large order for an anonymous buyer, special ingredients for a signature scent. Invoices showed the pickup address, a riverside cottage once belonging to Emily's late mentor, investigative reporter Howard Lane. Ryan tightened his grip on the wheel. "That's where they're keeping her." He glanced at Rex, who shifted forward, eyes on the road ahead. Hay parked a block away and approached on foot. Mist curled off the river, dampening leaves and softening sound. The cottage crouched behind willow trees, shutters drawn tight. A faint light glimmered through a side window. Ryan crouched beside Rex. "Stay close. If things get messy, you find her first." Rex's tail flicked once, acknowledgement. Ryan pushed the door open, revealing a narrow hallway lined with old press clippings. A sweet aroma wafted from deeper inside, the same perfume that had haunted them since the scarf. At the far end, a closed door leaked pale light. Ryan signaled Rex forward. The dog patted silently, nose quivering. He stopped at the door, ears pricked. Ryan eased the knob. The door swung inward, revealing a room lit by a single lamp. Against one wall stood Emily, bound but alive, eyes wide with recognition. Beside her loomed a figure in a gray apron holding a small vial. "Police!" Ryan barked, stepping in. The captor turned, revealing an older man with weary eyes, the mentor from the torn photograph. "You don't understand," the man said, voice low. "I was trying to save her." Before Ryan could question, the man smashed the vial against the floor. Smoke erupted, thick and cloying. Rex lunged, teeth snapping at empty air as the captor darted through a side door. Ryan freed Emily, coughing through the haze. "Can you run?" She nodded, trembling. Together they stumbled outside, Rex guarding their flank. But by the time they cleared the mist, the man was gone, swallowed by forest shadows. Paramedics tended Emily near the car. She clung to Ryan's arm, whispering thanks. Walker's voice crackled over the radio, demanding an update. Ryan glanced at Rex, who was staring toward the woods, body taut. The case wasn't finished. One last confrontation waited. But for now, Emily was safe. Ryan scratched Rex behind the ears. Good work, partner. One more step. Rex's gaze never left the dark tree line where the scent of danger lingered, faint, patient, promising the final act. Rain swept across the cottage clearing, washing smoke from the air. Emily, wrapped in a blanket, sat inside a patrol car while paramedics checked her vitals. Ryan stood under the eaves, phone pressed to his ear. Units have the woods surrounded, Walker said through static. Suspects not far. Ryan's eyes found Rex. The shepherd paced, nose tilted to the breeze. Even exhausted, the dog vibrated with intent. Let's finish this, Ryan murmured, clipping the leash. They entered the dripping trees, flashlights slicing the dark. Mud sucked at Ryan's boots. Water hissed off branches. Rex guided them along deer paths, weaving between trunks as if the scent were painted in light. Deeper in, an abandoned hunting cabin appeared, crouched among pines. A single glow leaked from its chimney. Ryan crouched behind a log, hand steady on his pistol. Rex looked back, waiting. Ryan nodded. With me. Inside, Howard Lane stood at a workbench, hands trembling around a perfume atomizer. Bottles crowded the surface, dozens of blends, labels smudged by tears. I never meant to hurt her, Lane said without turning. Emily kept digging into people who would kill her. I tried to hide her until I could force her to quit. Ryan stepped closer, voice even. There were better ways than bombs and cages. Lane finally faced him, eyes hollow. They were coming for her, Cole. I made myself the villain so they'd stop looking. Rex growled low. Ryan sensed the man's despair, hardening to resolve. Lane raised the atomizer. This scent is laced with something fatal. If I release it, no one will use her again. Ryan tensed, ready to shoot, but Lane's aim shifted. Not toward Ryan, but toward his own chest. No. Ryan lunged, Lane squeezed. A sharp hiss filled the room. The older man crumpled before Ryan could reach him. Ryan kicked the atomizer aside and checked for a pulse. Nothing. Lane's final act had stolen every answer they needed. Outside, rain dulled the sting of failure. Emily, safe at the perimeter, met Ryan's eyes with relief and grief tangled together. Rex, however, stood rigid, nose working the air. He trotted back inside the cabin, barking once. Ryan followed. Near the hearth lay a sealed envelope. Inside, Emily, and if you read this, forgive me. I couldn't watch them destroy you. Leave journalism, live. The letter ended there, unsigned but clearly Lane's. Ryan folded it gently. The case was solved in the letter of the law, but justice felt blurred. A low whimper drew his attention. Rex was lying near the broken atomizer, paw trembling. His coat glistened with a sheen of droplets. Perfume residue from Lane's device. No. Rex. Ryan dropped beside him, sliding an arm under the dog's chest. Rex licked his wrist weakly. Paramedics rushed in, working fast, but the compound burned through Rex's lungs. Ryan stayed by his partner, whispering steady words as rain drummed on the roof. You did it, buddy. You found her. Rex's tail tapped once, a faint thump before stilling. A week later, sunlight spilled over Harbor Point Cemetery. Officers lined the path as Ryan placed a collar on a polished stone etched Rex partner. Protector. Hero. Emily stood nearby, holding the letter Lane left behind. He saved me, she said softly. Ryan nodded, unable to speak. He set Rex's badge at the base of the stone, the metal catching light. Back at the precinct, a new handler introduced a young shepherd pup to the team. The dog yipped, full of energy, but Ryan's eyes strayed to the empty mat beside his desk. He would train again, work again. That was the job. But a space in his life remained shaped exactly like a brave dog who once followed a ribbon of scent through danger, until the very end. Justice had been served. Emily free, the truth revealed. Yet victories in real life often came mixed with loss. The city owed its peace to a partner whose loyalty never wavered, even against a poison hidden in perfume. Rex's story ended where his duty was done, in quiet heroism, leaving behind a scent of courage that lingered long after the rain.